Oh, that's much better. Okay. All right.
What did you say?
Without further ado, I would like to welcome up to the front former State Senator Don Huffines and Conservative Huffines Chad Prather. Thank you very much. For those of you who don't know these two gentlemen, in alphabetical order, Don Huffines is a fifth-generation Texan and self-made businessman. Unlike career politicians, he's not beholden to the Austin swamp. Don is sacrificing his success in the industry to step back into the political arena and do what's right for the Lone Star State. He's committed to fighting tirelessly for Texans who have been let down by lying politicians for far too long. He believes that if we lose our freedom here in Texas, then there's nowhere left to flee to. Hard-working Texans deserve leadership, no excuses. Thank you very much, Senator Huffines.
Thank you.
Sitting next to Senator Huffines is Chad Prather. Chad is a conservative columnist and host on Blaze TV. He has received more than 1 billion views on Facebook alone, and is
crazy, isn't it? I wish that was dollars.
Conservative voice here in Texas.
Wish I could get a nickel for every view.
In all of America, across all the states, and #1 in all categories. He has been called the conservative modern-day Will Rogers. Please give it up for Mr. Chad Prather. All right, gentlemen, continuing in alphabetical order. Senator Huffines, your opening statements.
It's 6 minutes?
5 minutes.
5 minutes. Okay.
I'm gonna stand up.
Yeah, you better stand up.
Yeah.
It's easier.
Well, hello, Patriots. Hello, y'all having fun tonight? Well, life's too short not to have some fun. Well, like he said, I'm from Dallas. I was born in Dallas. I'm a 5th-generation Texan, and I'm a proud
Uh-oh.
Yeah, lock me off. Okay. Hello. I'm back. I'm back. Kind of, maybe. Anyway, I'm a God-fearing patriot.
Amen.
And I'm not working good.
Use this thing, Don.
Wait a minute.
Try that one.
Okay, I'll try this. I'll try Chad.
Thank you for using someone else's mics. Here, please use this one.
Okay, I'll use that one.
Someone else's mic.
Well, anyway, I grew up in the Metroplex. I'm a God-fearing patriot. And let me just say, start out, just going to give you a little bit of bio on me, some of y'all don't know. The best thing that ever happened to me was 34 years ago. I married my beautiful, perfect wife, Mary Catherine, which I know a lot of y'all know. I've got 5 children, 4 boys and a girl. Thank you. We homeschooled them throughout their schooling career to make sure they were raised in a conservative Christian environment. All 4 boys are Eagle Scouts. I was a Scout Master for 12 years, and I like to say that over 12 years I spent an average of 31 days in a sleeping bag every year. So I know how to camp. My dad had cattle, so I tell this in Fort Worth, since y'all the Stockyard Kings. I run the cattle chutes, and I can castrate a bull calf, and I've been beat up in the chute, and I can throw square bells in a barn, and I can tell you I decided I didn't want to make my living doing that. That's a tough way to make a living. But I'm in real estate. I graduated from the University of Texas in '81 with a finance degree, and I've been doing real estate ever since. It's been very good to me. I started working in politics, not working, but been active in politics all my life. I've been to a dozen state conventions, approximately, I lost count. I've been a delegate to 3 national conventions, and I've been a believer in liberty and freedom ever since. When I say that, I really mean it. Let me ask you guys, so how many have been to a state convention? Yay! All right, fantastic. That's a bunch. And let's see. Okay, let me ask you a rhetorical question. What is the fundamental role of government? For every elected office holder, or for every elected officer, what's the fundamental role of government? A lot of answers out there. Well, let me tell you. The fundamental role of government is always to defend your God-given liberty. Your God-given liberty. And that's the lens I looked through when I was in government. I also like to hunt, and in 2014, when my kids were out of the house, there was a trophy on the wall that I didn't have. It was a trophy rhino. I needed to get me a trophy rhino, and he was sitting in the chair of Senate District 16. He was the most liberal Republican in Austin. So I beat him heads up in a primary without a runoff. And then I was a state senator from 14 to 18. I got knocked out in 18 by the Democrats, and the Democrats took over Dallas County. I want to make sure I don't run over my time. And knocked out all the Republicans in Dallas County. I think we had maybe 3 left out of 75 partisan positions. But I wasn't disappointed too much when that happened, because I really never liked politics that much. But I knew there was something else I had to get done, because let me tell you real quick what I got done in Austin and my experience down there. Well, first, I was always ranked one of the most conservative, if not the most conservative state senators in Austin by all the scorecards. Second, I was the only elected office holder in the history of the state of Texas, according to the Secretary of the Senate, that never took a penny from the government. No pay, pension, health care, no reimbursements, no travel vouchers. I didn't even use their office furniture. And I say that because I never worked for the government, I never will. I work for the people that sent me there, you guys. It's the same way I'm going to be as a governor. So I'll never take a penny. And third was that I was proud of, that I uncovered a real big political corruption scandal. It's the largest political corruption scandal in modern Texas history. It was in Dallas County. Everybody was paying this tax. It was an elected government bureaucracy. It had 3,000 employees. It had a $110 million annual budget. It was called Dallas County Schools. It gets a little confusing, but the bottom line, they were stealing tens of millions of dollars. I'm the one that got the Texas Rangers involved, the FBI involved. And we got 6 people put in prison, including the city mayor pro tem of the city council of Dallas, Dwayne Caraway, and he's serving 7 years in federal prison for taking bribes. I was going to tell you real fast that I got a piece of legislation done to get rid of them and close that whole organization down. It was the biggest takedown of a government agency really in modern history, because it was so big. But it wasn't easy to do that. And when I say that, because I'm going to tell you a quick story of my experience in Austin. And that is that your Republican office holders, your Republican leaders, and certainly your governor, they don't like you. As a matter of fact, they make fun of you, they belittle you. And they do that. When I would take this in there, one of my favorite documents is our party platform. Right here. Y'all know, y'all been to state conventions, you know this is put together by tens of thousands of Republicans. This is what we do. We put this together, it's got our legislative priorities on there, it clearly defines who we are as Republicans. That's one of my favorite documents. Well, they don't think that. And do you know why this isn't law? Because they don't believe in it. They don't want it to be law. We've controlled everything in Austin for 20 years. 20 years. And every year we go down there and beg for a little party favor. Oh, please, sir, would you give us a little favor on one of our priorities? And we'll get 1 or 2, because they'll go in the back room and they'll put their feet up on the desk and they'll open the bottom drawer and they pull the whiskey bottle out and they'll say, oh, what are we going to give the Grassroots this year? And that's how the deals are done. Do you know how many bills fail on the Senate floor? How many bills do not pass? 0. Everything you see on the floor of the Senate is for show. All the debate, everything about it. All the votes are decided in the back room. All of it. That is how duplicitous they are. Most of your Republican leaders are liars. Just like he said, they're liars. Have you ever met a Republican that didn't say he was conservative? What? Oh, of course not. Well, how many are conservative?
Senator Huffines.
How many?
Close to time.
Oh, thank you. Thank you very much. Well, anyway, I'm running because I'm tired of being lied to. I'm tired of the empty and broken promises by our governor. I mean, is our border secure?
No.
Are property taxes going down?
No.
Do you have confidence in your elections?
No.
I could go all the way down the list. And we're going to fix that. I've got the best plan to secure the border. I'll do in 30 days what they couldn't do in 30 years. I got a great plan to phase out your property tax. And I can tell you I've got a great plan to make sure we're not getting cheated in our elections. And thank you very much.
Thank you, Senator. And thank you, all of you, for coming out here tonight. Thank you to the Elks Club for hosting us tonight, for those who put on hard work to do all of this. Thank you to the bartenders. Make sure you tip your servers and your bartenders tonight, by all means. God bless a free market economy, right? Last year, servers and bartenders couldn't work. You know why? Because Greg Abbott unilaterally and dictatorially shut them down. People lost their jobs, they lost their livelihoods, they lost their businesses. Many places are still in lawsuits. Our friend here in Fort Worth, Chris Pallone at Railhead Live, is still in court dealing with these shutdown mandates, fighting the TABC, I think, as a small business owner. His current legal battles are now up to about $300,000 of expenses of his personal money. These are the kind of things that we're fighting. Politics, folks, is the most exciting thing we're doing in our lives in America today. Tell me another time in history when you can look back and you knew who the Secretary of the Interior was. Unfortunately, in the last few years, we've gotten so addicted to politics that it has poisoned us, whether it is with our personal relationships, our families, our relationships with friends, those we go to work with, to those we know on social media. We are following a dogma that is predicated on beating someone else. These things should not be. I'm running for governor because I want to get government out of your life. I want to get government out of your conversation. I want to get government out of your pocketbooks. I want to get it out of your wallet. I want to get it out of your business. I wanted to get it out of your decisions. In fact, I want you to have so much freedom that you don't know what to do with that much liberty. I believe that Texas is being out-Texased right now. We have folks in South Dakota. We have folks in Florida. They're comparing Texas. I don't believe Texas should be one amongst 50. I believe Texas should be the one. We set the standard. We are the ones, the last bastion, holding the standard, the flag of freedom and liberty, saying this is what America should strive to be like. When people come to this country and they go back home to their countries, people always ask them, you went to America, but did you visit Texas? And everywhere I go, I crisscross the states. I go to 30, 35 states a year. In my business, I'm in the world of entertainment. And I was just in Seattle, Washington, of all places. And the folks in Washington state know more about Texas politics than we know here in our own state. They looked at me and they said, what are you guys doing? Because they've lost so much of their liberty. And the same could be said for Oregon, the same could be said for California, Michigan, New York, New Jersey, Illinois, various places around the country. What are you doing in Texas? Why are you letting them chip away at your liberty? I was on the radio 2 weeks ago with my friend Andrew Wilkow. He said, I live in New Jersey. He said, I would kill to have a governor like Greg Abbott. I said, that's because you're used to being enslaved. I said, you've had so much liberty taken away from you in New Jersey that you don't understand. The spirit of Texas doesn't allow our liberty to be chipped away without us getting significantly ticked off and doing something about it. The spirit of Texas, folks, it's not taught, it's caught. I moved here 20 years ago from the state of Georgia. And before you hold that against me, let me remind you, I am pro-life. I believe that life begins at conception. I have spent the last 30 years of my life fighting for the unborn, being a voice for the most victimized amongst us in society, and believing that life begins at conception. I'll tell everyone in here, I was conceived in Dallas. So while I didn't grow up here, I'm at least seminally Texan. And the state of Texas embraced me, brought me in. When I came here 20 years ago after growing up in Georgia in the equestrian world, cutting, reining, didn't know anything about rodeo. I came out here after getting a hard time in high school wearing a cowboy hat and boots and my friends making fun of me. I came to Fort Worth and I said, I have found my tribe. These are my people. And 6 months later, I was moving to Texas, and I haven't looked back. I believe that this is the center of the universe. I believe that this is the greatest state in a great nation. I believe that we have We don't have to look at statistics to prove how great we are. We got tens of thousands of illegals lined up at the southern border trying to get in here, but yet we can't get a single celebrity to leave. We live in a great country, folks, but we live in a great state. And I believe that Texas is being out-Texased right now. I believe that Texas isn't the Texas that most Texans think it is. When you are unilaterally and dictatorially shut down by a governor who did not seek counsel with those in leadership and those who are in elected representation in Austin, or talk with the legislators, but just came out with a mandate and shut you down, that is constitutional abrasion. That is a point where you say enough is enough. The Constitution of the United States and the Constitution of Texas was not written to keep you safe, it was written to keep you free. And we have allowed too much freedom to be taken away from us. Say, why aren't you more like South Dakota? They don't have toast named after South Dakota. Why aren't you more like Florida? There's no waffle irons in the shape of Florida. We're proud Texans. We hold our head a little bit higher. We push our chests out. We suck it in. We walk a little taller with a humble arrogance. We come together with our neighbors. For instance, with Hurricane Harvey, and we take care of each other. Nobody had to mandate that we take care of our neighbors. Greg Abbott last year mandated that you keep everybody safe, when he could have, instead of treating you like a child, come to you and said, you know, we're up against something we've never faced before. And I'm going to trust you to be adults to take care of not only yourselves, but to take care of your neighbors. You do what you need to do, but don't infringe on anybody else's rights in so doing it. And I believe that you guys would have had no problem with that whatsoever. But instead, he followed political suit, and he went with the grain. He went with the political grain. And you know what? We lost. We lost. We lost to the tune of $295 million of taxpayer money that was taken to be used to pay for contact tracing. That right there is enough to kick that man out of office. There's no other, just that issue alone. As my good friend the senator said, our taxes in property where you never own your home, you're leasing from the state, is skyrocketing. We have an energy crisis. We have a water crisis, which is something that many of us are not talking about right now. I was just in Valverde County the last 3 days. Monday to Wednesday, I was in both Kinney County, I was in Valverde, I was down in Del Rio. I saw firsthand. Senator Huffines has seen firsthand on the border what's going on down there. It is an absolute nightmare. We have got to do something about this. And it starts with making sure that Greg Abbott does not find a third term as the governor in the great state of Texas. God bless you. God bless Texas.
All right, gentlemen, thank you for great opening statements. We'll now proceed to the question and answer format of our debate. I would like each of you to answer these questions in just 1 minute. I will then give each of you 30 seconds to follow up, switching back and forth among who goes first. To kick things off, I'd like to start with a question directly from our audience, and you are free to answer how you choose. If you became governor on Monday, what would you do to save Texas? Mr. Prather, we'll start with you. 1 minute.
Well, the first thing we would do is we would make sure that the counties that are facing the crisis most significantly, the 20 counties that are on our 1,254 miles of border with Mexico, are fully equipped with DPS abilities, facilities, manpower, with the equipment that is necessary to make sure that they are determining the safety of their own county. We're not going to wait on the federal government. We're not going to wait on sleepy Joe Biden. We're going to make sure the National Guard is sent down there. We're going to make sure that we allow every federal agent that's down there to do their jobs, but we're going to supplement that, stand on that river and say, not today. We're going to send a message to the cartels and say, you are not coming in here. We will use every resource that we have available to us to make sure that that happens, and we will turn the tide. I'm telling you, we have a situation where there are 1,100 illegal aliens that are being apprehended every single day in Valverde County alone. A county that has 50,000 people. The Biden administration will tell you that we have a closed border. It's closed to those who should be crossing. into the United States to do business. It is open to the illegals. I stood there with my toes in the Rio Grande on Monday afternoon. You know how I got there? I walked up to it. I looked across the river and I saw numerous Mexicans on the other side waiting for the sun to go down so that they could walk across, swim across, change clothes, get picked up by Border Patrol that would act as an Uber driver to them to take them to a processing facility and then release them into our country.
Thank you, Mr. Prather. Mr. Huffines.
How long do you want me?
About a minute.
A minute, okay.
Well, I certainly agree with Chad on that issue. That's why this election is the most important in the United States in 22, and time will tell it could be one of the most important in the history of the United States. We're being invaded. This is a premeditated attack on Texas, unarguably. The cartels are going to smuggle in approximately 2 million illegals into Texas in a 12-month period. These are the most violent, dangerous criminal organizations on earth. There's nothing they won't do. Everybody that crosses that river is paying the cartels. They're making hundreds of millions of dollars a month. Well, I'm going to enact, I have a very good border plan. You can go to my website and look at it. And we've put a lot of thought into it. I'm going to finish Trump's wall, and I'm not going to build just 50 feet of it with conservative donors' money. I'm going to build hundreds of miles of it, and we're going to spend whatever it takes to get that done. It'll cost billions of dollars. Next, I'm enacting Article 1, Section 10 of the United States Constitution, was specifically written for this very occasion. It gives the governors of the states that are being invaded the right to do whatever they need to do to secure their citizens and their citizens' safety. I will thank you. I'm going to engage the entire Texas military, all 20,000. We have a lot of assets. I'll taking DPS and moving them, letting them step back. If we need reinforcements, I'll use those from other states. I'm closing all 25 crossings over that river for all inbound commercial traffic from Mexico. We do 200 billion plus of trade with them. I'm going to make them suffer economically.
That's right.
And I'm going to make them secure their side of the river, or they're not getting any of that commerce into Texas. I'm using the Guard to secure the whole river, and anybody that crosses the river will be put on buses and immediately taken back to the other side.
Right.
This is Texas's border. I will never, ever ask permission from the federal government to secure the Texas border. Never happen.
Thank you, Mr. Huffines. Mr. Prather, 30 seconds to respond.
There's only one caveat to that. I want to keep 12 buses available. I want to fill those buses with illegal aliens. I want to take the Texas Rangers and have them escort those 12 buses full of illegal aliens, and I want them to drive it to Washington, D.C. And I want them to pull up to the Capitol steps, and I want them to open up the doors of those buses and turn every one of them loose and let those folks deal with our problem.
Thank you, Mr. Prather. Mr. Huffines, 30 seconds more.
On the same topic?
Well, I would just say this, that this is an invasion, and Texas will go blue. And the only chance we have to secure that border is with a courageous governor. It's not going to happen any other way. You have to have courage, and that's what my campaign's about. Courageous leadership,
That's right.
No excuses.
That's good.
Thank you, gentlemen. Some excellent insight there. As you saw from the announcements and presentations, critical race theory is a hot topic in this year's politics. As governor, what would you do about critical race theory in Texas schools? Mr. Huffines, I'll start with you.
Thank you. This is a very hot topic, as you saw the speaker before us. I really hope it's a catalyst. I really do, for people to run for the school board. We need patriots on the school board. So I hope this really generates a lot of excitement for people to take back our school board from the leftists that have dominated it. Well, there's two bills right now pending in the legislature in a special session, which are probably, Democrats aren't ever going to come back for to get it done. One's a Senate bill and one's a House bill. I'm supporting House Bill 178 by Steve Toth. It's got a lot more teeth in it. It makes the teachers put the curriculum on the internet so you can see exactly what they're teaching, and it's got recourse in it. I think you'll see the governor get behind the liberal bill. And so this is an important issue. It's a communist plot. There's no question about it. The communists have made, it's always on their websites. You can see it. The Communist Party of the United States, they've been posting stuff like this for 40 or 50 years or more. They're taking over the seminaries, they're taking over education, and they're taking over the schools down south. Let me just say something else that most people don't realize. Our universities are run by liberals. Well, guess who appoints the board of regents for every state university in Texas? The governor.
That's right.
The governor of Texas puts every single member on the board of regents that hires all the people that direct these universities. A few years ago, they hired a guy from Berkeley to run our flagship university in Austin, University of Texas. The governor does that. The governor is responsible for this. Don't kid yourself. The governor doesn't want to. He is a political windsock. This is a guy that's been in office 31 years on the Texas taxpayer. 31 years. He's a definition of a career politician. He's only going to do what he needs to do to further his career. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Prather.
So one of the things that we've got to do, and I'm glad that the giveaway, the raffle there, was for Mark Levin's new book, The American Marxist. He writes several chapters in there addressing the history of where critical race theory comes from. It comes from that Marxist ideology of critical theory. And it's just another way of socialism, Marxism, communism, of being repackaged, repurposed, introduced to our next generation. There are three things that liberals and progressives have to do to control our country. There's three things they have to control. That is our courts, that is our education system, and that is our media. We're barely holding on by a thin thread with our courts. We've got to take back control of our schools. You know, the schools at one point in time in our history were certainly controlled by the parents, by the family, by the church. Right now, we've created this Zoom call culture of education. If we're going to use Zoom call, let's put kids back in the classroom and let's keep the Zoom cameras running so that parents at any given time without any permission can listen in to the crap that their kids are being indoctrinated with. We choose to put our kids in these indoctrination camps called public education, and then we send them to these academic bubbles of higher education, the university campus, where some pinhead has done nothing more than push papers around for 30 years and test his theories out on young minds, and it's nothing more than Marxism being propagated as American patriotism, and it's absolutely not. Critical race theory has no place in our schools, has no place in our school boards, it has no place in our society. And as governor, what I would do is make sure that any school board is penalized and their life becomes very difficult if they promote these doctrines of philosophy in education that changes our society, the fabric of our society, into Marxism, socialism, communism. We make sure and we hold their feet to the fire because it's straight out of the pit of hell.
Amen.
Thank you, Mr. Prather. Mr. Huffines, would you like to respond?
They're waiting on us to sling mud.
I ain't got any mud.
I'm about to put Huffines' hat on here in a minute.
I got a Chad hat.
Well, this is not truly a friendly debate, and I imagine there's much that you two gentlemen agree on. This is the format for our debate. I'm not in any way encouraging wrestling.
No, we're not going to do it. None of that.
I would just add that Marxist philosophy is always about dividing us. Identity politics,
Sure.
Your ethnicity, where you're from, who your heritage is, how much money you have or don't have, your sex, your sexual preference. Any way they can divide us, they're going to do it. And that's what this is about.
It is.
Thank you, Mr. Huffines. Mr. Prather, 30 seconds more, if you'd like.
What we've got to do is our educators are in a bad situation. Whether it's the teachers union, which is problematic and needs to be dismantled, all the way up to the federal level of the Department of Education, which has never educated anyone. We've got to take control back, allow our educators to actually educate, test, and evaluate, and let them be held accountable to what's being taught to our children. It's up to us as parents, because we're still writing the history of Texas. We can talk about the Bowies, we can talk about the Travises, we can talk about the Austins, we can talk about the Crockett's, all of those. But let's put your name in that list, because right now we're facing an untenable future in so many ways, whether it's immigration, education, or whatever's happening in the legislation. We've got to remember we're writing history, and it's time we take it back.
Thank you very much, gentlemen. On the topic of education as well, we have a hand. Go ahead. I believe we have a microphone for you, but if not, you are free to use mine.
Hi, thanks for coming tonight. I have a question about critical race theory in our schools. Mr. Abbott had banned Common Core in our schools, and he didn't enforce it, and our school districts kept teaching it. I asked him, what about taking state funding from these schools that break the law? His advice was, us parents just need to get more involved with that. We need to be more involved in the school board. He likes to leave a lot of the freedoms up to the parents and the family. The problem is the school districts don't listen. We go to school board meetings and we get 3 whole minutes. That's it. We are not allowed in the school. We are not allowed to see what's being taught. So what are the teeth that you're going to use to enforce the banning of critical race theory in our schools? And how are you going to hold their feet to the fire? I say take their state funding away. They get plenty of bond money from us anyway. So why should we give them any more for breaking the law?
I agree with that. We have to, let's face it, power and money are the biggest things that motivate people in so many different ways. We've got to stop the state funding that's there. But even if you remove something, there's no such thing as a vacuum. Something will rush to fill that space. My issue there is, even if we make it illegal for you to teach these doctrines, we take away your funding, what are we going to put in its place? In its place, I believe we have got to get back to a point of teaching true history, true patriotism, constitutionality, understanding who we are, where we're going, what we're leaving behind, and making sure that the curriculum is something that we as Texas patriots approve of, so that when our children graduate school, they're not going to go off to some education, higher learning institution and graduate after 4 or 5 years with a degree in undecided. We don't know who we are as a society because we haven't told our story properly. So to the point, we take it away, but what do we fill it with? Because I think I'm done being defensive. It's time for us to be offensive. It's time for us to get on the offensive and to move into these institutions and take it back and say, you will not shut us up, you will not cancel us, you will not stop us. We're here, and by God, we're ready for the fight.
Thank you, Mr. Prather. Mr. Huffines, the floor is yours.
Well, I think a lot of the problem in our education system started when we lost God.
That's right.
We lost God in the education, and we're suffering from that, and I don't know if we're ever going to not suffer from that. But we need to get God back in our schools, and that's imperative. The thing about taking funding away is a good idea, and I'd be for that. I would caution you this. President Obama was a constitutional professor. So don't forget, it depends on who your teacher is. What they're really saying in the classroom. It's hard to monitor all that. So you can have a very conservative Western civilization class that was designed specifically with the right curriculum. But we don't know exactly what that teacher is going to be saying in that classroom. So it does get complicated. I would say that parents have to be paying attention. And now with education online, I think a lot of parents really realize that. And that's why you're seeing a boom in homeschooling.
That's right.
And that is tremendous. And,
that's right.
So anyway, I'll stop there. Thank you.
That's right. That's right.
Thank you, Senator Huffines. Continuing with the topic of education, the state Republican Party and grassroots Republicans all around Texas are concerned with the issue of school choice. what would each of you do as governor about school choice, if anything? Senator Huffines, you are first.
One of my favorite topics. When I was in the Senate, 2 sessions, I was a champion for school choice, and the 84th was in session. I'm the one that filed the ESA, Education Savings Accounts Bill, for school choice. I call it education freedom or parental choice now. One thing I would encourage everybody is not to follow the Democrats, the socialist line about changing our language. They're very good at it. They call themselves progressive. They call people migrants. We need to call it what it is. This is parental choice, and these are government schools. I'm a businessman. I'll be the first businessman to sit in the governor's seat since 1978. We have a completely different way of looking at things than these career politicians. I see the issue. I'm going to take action. I'm going to resolve it. I'll be accountable to the decision I make, and if it's wrong, we're going to move on and learn from it. But look, this is a monopoly. This is a government monopoly in our education system. That is not what we need. We need competition. Competition always lowers the price and increases the quality of everything it touches. It's going to do the same thing with our government schools. There's a lot of ways to get there, but we need to provide parents choices. Right now, the government picks the curriculum. The government tells you what school you have to go to. The government tells you, what you're going to study in the school. These are government-run schools, and people are trapped in these education systems that don't work for them. And it could be disabilities. It could be a lot of issues that parents need to get their children out. If the child's not performing well, he needs to have an option. So that's what parental choice and school choice is all about. It's been a priority of the Republican Party for 30 years.
Thank you, Senator Huffines. Mr. Prather.
And I agree with that wholeheartedly, and I would add to it that we're in a dilemma here. At the end of the day, I believe that you, the parent, the grandparent, you, the caregiver of these children, of this next generation, you're the final authority, you're the final say. You determine their education. Now let me ask you a question, and I'll just phrase it this way. My friend Tim Barton, who is a historian, Wall Builders International, he's told me numerous times, and I've seen the tests. He said back at the turn of the century, when the 19th century became the 20th century, he said the education, the test, most people weren't educated above 8th grade. They only went to school 3 months a year. He said in all these years we'll bring people in, and we'll bring in educators who are in school. They're getting master's degrees and PhD levels. He said we will give them the test that 8th graders in 1901 in America were taking. He said in all the years we've done it, we've yet to have a single PhD candidate pass that test. And this is what 8th graders in 1900 were taking after only 3 months of school. Now, would you rather have that, folks, or would you rather have a teacher that's training so that your kid can get to the STAR test? This whole thing, whether it is the curriculum, whether it is critical race theory, whether it's philosophy, or whether it's what school you choose to send your child to, it is up to you. And folks, it needs a massive, massive overhaul. Remember what I said. We're running to get government out of your life. To the degree we're successful at that, these issues go away.
Thank you, Mr. Prather. Senator Huffines, you raised an interesting point about school choice being a priority for the Republican Party in Texas. Why, in your opinion, has it not gone further in recent legislative sessions?
Well, as C.S. Lewis sort of said, courage is the catalyst for all virtues. And we just don't have a lot of courageous leaders in Austin, and our governor is one of them. He's the guy. I was there. A governor is supposed to mediate between the House and the Senate. He's supposed to keep everybody on track, to keep them from fighting each other. He's supposed to direct legislation. He's supposed to actually be for something, champion something. He's never championed anything. When I was there, the only thing he ever championed was pre-K education, which was a Marxist plot. Right. And I voted against it. But there's no leadership in Austin. Everything starts at the top. It starts with the governor. You're not going to get to the 1-inch line down there unless the governor is going to be championing it. The governor doesn't want school choice. He'll come out and say, I'll sign it if it gets here. So what's the rest of the members going to do? They're not going to fight for anything. So to answer your question, I think it's the fact we just don't have courage. And you got to remember that our legislatures, the House particularly, is run by rhinos. There were Democrat, Republican in name only. The Democrats elect the Speaker. They all vote for the Speaker. 30% of the committees are chaired by Democrats. At my caucus hearing meetings we would have once a week in the Senate, the thing they would care and talk about more than they ever talked about anybody or groups in this room or any grassroots group was the Democrats. How do we make the Democrats happy? What do the Democrats think? What are they going to do? That's what they care about. That's just how they operate down there. And so 20 years of being in power, and we have no one of courage to stand up and make this happen.
Thank you, Senator Huffines. Mr. Prather, you're free to respond to that question, or I have a follow-up question.
Well, let me just say, I want to echo that same sentiment, because most people, beside the preschool for everyone, there has never been another piece of legislation, to my knowledge, and maybe you can correct me if I'm wrong, that Governor Greg Abbott has ever put his neck on the chopping block and said, I'm 100% pushing for this to happen. We just got through the 87th legislative session, which was supposed to be the most conservative legislative session in all of the history of Texas. And what happened? Nothing. Absolutely. Your priorities were ignored. They were taken advantage of. And even the 2 of the 8 priorities that got to the governor's desk are watered down to an unrecognizability because they've been so watered down, folks. There was nothing conservative. We've gotten to a point, folks, where even as conservatives, we've got such an expansive, invasive government that if tomorrow we came in and cleaned house and shut things down, that even the Republicans in this state wouldn't know what to do with themselves with that much freedom. With time, we have got to change this. Clean house, stop this. They're not representing you. The power is not in the hands of the people. Would you rather have a top-down government where it's dictatorially handling the affairs of your life, or would you want a grassroots organic movement that comes from the bottom up and tells Austin what they should do for the people of Texas? Absolutely. To me.
Thank you very much. Yes, the question, start with you, Mr. Prather. You mentioned the STAR test. What would you do as a governor? What legislation would you support to reform standardized testing here in Texas?
We've got to get to a point, and a lot of people have accused me of this and saying you're anti-standardized test. I'm not. I'm anti-standardized focus. When all we're doing is paying our educators and our teachers, who God bless the men and women who carry that mantle. I was talking to a guy the other day who he was fired from his teaching position this past year because he was telling a student to put his phone down. And he was on his phone texting all day long through the class, and he made him put his phone down. That teacher lost his job. Teachers don't have authority to rule their classrooms, run their classrooms anymore, and make sure that discipline is being carried out and education is happening. We've got to get back to a point where we untie the hands of our educators. These are great men and women who, they're doing a job I would want to do. Listen, I got 5 kids. They're great kids, and it's because I beat their ass. And the beauty of having a big family is you don't have to beat them all. You can just cut one out of the herd and beat that one while the rest of them watch. And the rest of them learn the lesson. We're not disciplining our kids anymore. We're not doing that. I believe in some levels of standardized testing. For instance, I believe that before you graduate high school, one of the requirements is you should have to pass the U.S. citizenship test. I also believe that before you hold public office in the United States of America, you'd have to pass the same test. It's amazing what common sense will do if we just apply a little bit of it to the most simple parts of our life, not the least of which, of course, and one of the most important, is education. So as far as reform, we've got to cut this thing out. We're measuring our kids in the wrong way. That's what we use and pay teachers to do. It's their job to evaluate, not a standardized bubble-taking multiple choice test.
Right.
Well, I agree with Mr. Prather on it. I'm not a fan of the high stakes testing. It's teach to the test, and that's a mistake. I would like to point out something, though. In our public government school system, we have about 5.5 million students in the state of Texas. It's massive. It's a massive education system. But we're thinking about, according to Texas Education Agency, about 400,000 are illegals. Maybe more, maybe 500,000 of the students here are not supposed to be here. And this is a huge burden on teachers, it's a huge burden on administrators, it's a huge burden on Texas taxpayers. We're spending $12,000 to $14,000, those are English as second language students, and this is a big problem for Texas. That open border is fixing to dump in tens of thousands of more students into our school system. And everything's on the margins. So we just need to make sure we secure that border as one step into making sure we're going to have quality education for everyone else in the system.
That's right. That's right.
Thank you, gentlemen. Both of you have touched on values and the governor's role as a leader. As you know, the governor is the informal public opinion leader, is the face of our state. What would each of you do as governor to model Texas values and the values of your faith to the citizens of Texas and the world? Senator Huffines, let's start with you.
That's an interesting question.
It is a good one.
That is a good question. I can tell you what I've thought about doing. I would say right now my plan is to erect a chapel in the outside of the governor's mansion, in the yard of the governor's mansion. I plan on having services there every day, and maybe twice a day. And we're going to give the glory to God so everyone can see it, everyone can participate in it, and we can invite chaplains in there. I want to make sure that Texas gets its swagger back, that we're here for God, and we're going to get our glory and honor Him, honor Jesus. And I'll use the bully pulpit a lot. That is something that's one of the biggest tools that the governor has is to use that bully pulpit. And so, and when I say that also, not just for that, it's not just for Texas. This election is to save the United States of America. This election is to save the free world. We will be, when you have a courageous governor, it sets the tone for the rest of the nation and all the other governors. We'll be the tip of the spear. We'll buck them all up. We'll my plan is to show the world what a sovereign state really is. I'm going to take our sovereignty to a level you've never seen. Really, no one's ever seen since the 1800s. Or what it means to be sovereign. I will never ask permission from the federal government to do anything. I will be very hesitant to enforce any of their rules or regulations if it doesn't benefit Texans. I'm worried about Texans' pursuit of happiness, not the government's.
That's good, man. One of the things we have to do is we got to remember that Texans are fully capable of taking care of themselves. We know how to take care of ourselves. We know how to take care of our neighbors. We know how to get our legislation. You know how to govern yourself. You know how to govern your family, your home, your neighborhood, your community. You know how to do those things. We've seen it as examples over and over again. Sam Houston, the first president of the Republic of Texas, said that we should govern wisely and as seldom as possible. In getting government out of the way, it enables you to be the Texan that your spirit tells you you are. That, as I like to call it, that humble arrogance that makes us a little bit bigger than everybody else. That ability to defend your land, defend your ranch, to grow your crops, to be the backbone of America, the blue-collar, hard-working person that pulls themselves up by the bootstraps and blazes their own trail, who works hard 6 days a week and goes to church on Sunday morning and worships with their family while they pay their bills to keep their head above water and struggle to take care and leave something for their children's children. Those are the blue-collar backbone of America. That's the hard-working man and woman that's out there. But right now we're being dictated to by 5 cities that are influencing one. We have El Paso, Houston, San Antonio, Dallas, and Fort Worth, which unfortunately, where I live, has now gone blue, as evidenced in the 2018 election between Ted Cruz and Beto O'Rourke. And where Robert Francis O'Rourke supposedly lost that election, he won in the down ballot and completely disrupted things in this state. And I don't doubt for 1 minute that they're going to try to do that again in this 2022 election. What I want to do is put the power back in the hands of the people of Texas, not the big cities. Someone asked me, they said, if you go to Austin, will you think you can handle that since Austin's not like the rest of Texas? I said, that right there is the problem. The fact that Austin, the capital, isn't like the rest of Texas tells you that something needs to change. If we're going to amend the Constitution, if we're going to pass laws, if we're going to tell the people of Texas what we're going to do and build a legacy going forward, I think that nothing should be passed without a ratification by 3/4 of the counties in the state of Texas. The counties, not the big cities that tell Austin what to do. It puts the power back into a Parker County, into a Valverde County, into a Kinney County, not just Harris County, not just Bayard County, not just Dallas County, not just Tarrant, not just Travis. It's time for the people of Texas to have the power back. And those who go back into Austin are reminded that they're there as servants and representatives.
Thank you, gentlemen. Both of you touched on some other interesting topics that I definitely wanted to cover. What is your opinion about taxpayer-funded lobbying, and how do you, as governor, do anything about it, if any? Go ahead, Mr. President.
They got to go. You know, the lobbyists know that in the job description that they're supposed to be complained about. They know that on the political trail, on the campaign trail, that you're supposed to speak negatively about lobbyists. They know it because it's built in their job description. They go along with that, and then they go back to business as usual. And unfortunately, politicians on both sides of the aisle use them as a necessary evil to continue to fund their war chest and their ambitions and their anticipations, and they learn to monetize everything that's down there. But folks, when I tell you something, when we have a governor and a speaker of the House who's being funded by clinics and by organizations that are modifying the genders of our children, at what point in time do we draw the line and say no more taxpayer-funded lobbyists, no more multinational corporations, no more foreign entities, no more hands in our pocket, no more the 2.5 million bureaucrats in Washington, D.C. with their bony, greedy fingers in our pockets and telling us what to do, controlling us? Absolutely no more.
Well, of course, I agree with Chad. You know, this is a priority of our Republican Party, legislative priority. This session, previous sessions, we've talked about it forever. It's another example of failed leadership. Abbott doesn't want to come out about this. He doesn't want to get rid of it. What they're doing is they're taking, these cities are taking your money, school districts, your tax dollars, and they're going to Austin to screw you. That's what they're doing. They're using your money to make laws that screw you. And that's the whole system is set up that way. Tens of millions of dollars of taxpayer money is being spent to make sure you won't close them down. You won't pass anything against them. When I got rid of Dallas County schools, let me tell you, they were all crooks. The whole organization was crooked. They spent $1.3 million of taxpayers' money hiring the best lobbyists in Austin to beat my bill to close them down and to keep them out of jail. That gives you an example.
Well, gentlemen, I could stand up here asking you questions all night. These are wonderful answers. I'm going to ask just one or two more questions and open it up to the audience. Speaking of the role of the governor and leadership, a wise person once said that personnel is policy. What would you do as governor to ensure that the people that you surrounded yourself with gave you wise counsel and accurately represented the values that you hold? Mr. President, let's start with you.
I tell jokes for a living. I know who I am. I make a living in the world of entertainment. By the grace of God, I've managed to build a successful small business, numerous small businesses, and also be successful in the world of entertainment. But at the end of the day, I never pandered to Hollywood, although I've been out there to all the studios, and I've pitched our sitcoms that we've written, and we've talked to them, and we've met with those folks. But at the end of the day, I know who I am. I know who my mother and my father raised me to be. I know the Lord that lives in my heart, the one who guides my soul and guides the directions of my steps. And I've always been a person of conviction. I don't assume to know everything there is to know about policy or the things of political science, but I do know a long time ago that I learned from one of my mentors that it's good to have those folks around you who are wise, people who have been there, people who have lived through and endured and succeeded, those who have failed, those who have picked themselves up and continued again. I believe that this is not a dictatorship. This is representative government. This is a republic. We enjoy the benefits of an idea that our founding fathers and also the founding fathers of Texas bestowed unto us. And it's up to us to debate and dialogue and discuss and disagree and then still come back together for the betterment of the people that we represent. So to your question, I think we have to make sure that we are humble enough that we come together and we say, there are certain things I don't know. You husbands would be good to learn that phrase. And I've learned it many times the hard way. And it's time that we get to a point where we say there are those that need to be appointed, those with the same conviction, those who will not bow to the lobbyist dollar, will not bow to the latest winds of doctrine, and those who will stand up with their convictions. We put those people, those great minds that do still exist in the state of Texas, and we allow them to innovate and to think. If you think about it, there's no innovation in politics. Why? Because there's no reward from it. So you have to find those whose reward is in that of preserving a great legacy, and they find their satisfaction in that. That's the team you build.
I think this is an extremely important question. I've seen what happens with legislators and leaders that don't surround themselves with the right people. I'm a business person and a businessman, and I understand how you make a successful business is the team you hire. Mm-hmm. It's the group that you put around you to do the job. The touchstone for a Huffines administration is liberty. Do they believe in liberty?
Right.
And I can tell you, we have a strong vetting process to prove it. In my campaign right now, I probably over about 35 we're hiring every week. I've got people that have given up six-figure salaries to come work a campaign for half that money. I've got people that move from out of state just to work on our campaign. I've gone all over the nation to find the best liberty lovers I can. It is the touchstone of my administration, because I can tell you, if we don't have that, we're all going to be in trouble. You get so washed away by the power, by all the other stuff that comes with it, from the lobbyists, the meals, the food, the drinks. You never buy a drink if you work for the governor. You can go be a lobbyist when you finish. Who's the #1 lobbyist right now in Austin? It's the chief of staff that worked for Greg Abbott last session. He's making $8 million a year. A year. 8 million, 6 million, $8 million, because he's got the governor's ear. You don't think money's going to buy people? It won't buy people that have in their heart and in their mind liberty. And that's my touchstone.
All right. Well, there's so many more topics that I know we would all love to hear from.
It's amazing, isn't it? It's amazing.
I think it's
just amazing.
Questions to the audience. We're going to do this kind of speed question round.
You do it for a living.
30 seconds, just 30 seconds to respond to the audience questions. Go ahead and raise your hand, and Kent will help find you. You have before one of the very nice hats.
Thank you. Good evening, gentlemen. Most of you know me as the patriotic girl next door. Quick question for you. A lot of you are aware that I'm part of the Save James movement.
I reached out to Governor Abbott to save this little boy's life from gender modification mutilation at the behest of his mother. I want to know if either of you are governor, and I reached out to your offices directly, like I did Governor Abbott. What would you do if I said, help me save this child? This is what's going on.
Senator Huffines, before you.
Thank you. I'll go first. Thank you for that. Well, Jeff Younger is someone I know. He came to me several years ago with this issue of his son. I don't know if you're familiar with it. His ex-wife is trying to have gender modification on his little boy. He has a twin brother. I won't go into all the details, but the judge has ordered that this son turn into a girl. And he's now 9. I've been working with him since he was 5. He's endorsed my campaign. We have over 1 million views on our website of his endorsement. This is something that could easily be fixed. All we need is a piece of legislation.
That's right.
And can you imagine the governor of Texas, Greg Abbott, or all the other leaders down there won't pass a bill to stop the sexual mutilation of our children below they're 18. It's just, I can't even comprehend it. So to answer your question, it would be one of the top things I would make sure we get done. And look, I would get all of my legislative priorities immediately on the agenda. The governor can put emergency items on there. It will be on there.
Thank you, Senator Huffines.
Thank you for that, Senator, and I agree wholeheartedly. Last night I was in Denison at the Cowboy Church there with some great folks, and there was a young man, many of you know him, he's 7 years old, I believe, and he dresses, he puts his suit on and he wears his Donald Trump hat, his MAGA hat, and I took a little picture with him last night. I posted it on social media, and there were people who said, child abuse is starting early. And I thought, this coming from people who embrace the gender modification and mutilation and the medical and pharmaceutical castration of our children under the age of 18. I don't care what you do as an adult. I don't care. But I will fight for children, and I will fight for the unborn. I will die for children, and I will die for the unborn. This is a watershed issue for me, and it has no place in Texas. It has no place in society. And as George Strait said, there's just 2 sexes here in Texas. I've seen if they're still awake, Don.
Question on the left.
I think that one of the 3 issues that will determine who's the next governor is election integrity. And my question is, how do you assess the state of our election integrity in Texas, and what are you going to do about it?
Well, so Senator, you are first for this.
So with the whistling of the thing, I think the question was about election integrity.
How do you assess it? And what are you going to do about it?
So one of the things we do is we get these machines, no machines. We fill these precinct chairs. We help people understand that Harris County alone has 500 empty precinct chairs. It's not even a swamp, the cesspool, because there's nothing living in state government right now. There's nothing good about it. It's a cesspool. It's draining a porta potty. We got to fill those chairs. We got to get people who are over these areas, who are looking at these elections, to make sure that all eyes are on the election. Right now, there is more integrity in an election of who wins American Idol than there is who wins an election in America. No more of that. We fully embrace audits. I believe we fully embrace audits. As many eyeballs as need to be on those ballots are on those ballots. We check, we double check. If we have to count them 5 times, we do it. We do not allow automation, none of those things. And let me tell you something, we have an election day, not an election season.
Thank you, Mr. President. Senator Huffines.
Well, we know people cheat in elections. People have cheated in
Always
elections
have.
since there's ever been an election. And right now, I just want to make sure you guys understand that where the Democrats left, this is what Greg Abbott allowed them to do. They pulled the same stunt 60 days ago, and everyone in Texas knows that they were going to do it again. This is a man that's been in charge of our elections for 20 years. 12 years as Attorney General, 8 years as governor. He doesn't care about election fraud. He only did this bill because he knows we're after him, and that's a fact. Look, I have got a great plan. You can go to my website and see how I'm going to fix it. Here's what I'm going to do very quickly. You're never going to get a Democrat to prosecute another Democrat for cheating a Republican. It isn't going to happen. Dallas County, the DA is a Democrat, the judges are Democrats, the juries are Democrats. That's not going to happen. It's about enforcing the laws we put on the books. We've got to have law enforcement. So, real quick, I'm going to have a separate court system. You can move venue. I'm going to have a separate prosecution system in that court system, and I'm going to insert law enforcement. I have a separate division. It's called Government Corruption and Election Integrity Division. 500 officers in there. They're going to be fully trained. They'll be able to find out and deputize people. They'll follow the ballots. I'm inserting law enforcement between the two parties because you cannot trust that they're two parties. Rhino Republicans cheat. Democrats cheat. People have always cheated in our elections, and I'm going to put law enforcement in charge of following those ballots, counting them, taking them off the internet, and enforcing our laws.
I like that.
I have two questions. Well, I just want to make it a statement. All right. The social emotional learning is something that Greg Abbott would not let go. So you are saying he didn't know something that he did, but anyway, he did that social emotional learning, which I assume he's getting money for that too. Anyway, the other question I have is about school choice. I've always been concerned about school choice because if you have government money going into private schools, they become government schools, as our charter schools have. So what do you say about that? You know, that I'm for school choice, but I think it has to be public school choice. It can't go into the private schools or homeschools.
No, I'll go for it. I'll take that. Yeah. Well, yes, I've heard that argument, and I would say this, that first it's choice. You don't have to take the money to go to a private school. And the school doesn't have to take the voucher or whatever you want to call it. It's the parents' money. The parents can use it find a school they want to. Same with the homeschoolers. We were split in the homeschool community. Do we want to be able to take government money or not? The strings attached to that? And the answer is really clear. You draft the legislation so there is no strings attached. And that's how you can draft it and work it. But if that doesn't work, then it's still it's still up to the parent to decide. So we just need more choice.
Thank you, Senator Huffines. Mr. President.
I would just add this one thing, and I agree completely with that. I would say if we pass anything that increases government involvement in our lives and what we're doing, then we're passing the wrong legislation.
Right.
We do it to the degree that, again, I go back to the point, we get government out of our lives. We make it smaller, we make it less invasive, and we allow the people to have the choice. And that's the same when it comes to school choice.
Thank you, Mr. Brady.
Question of the right.
Hi there. I was wondering, there's some judges here, so the Texas Family Code 2503 is not being enforced, where one parent kidnaps a child. They can go to a different state, they can do whatever they wish, and Sharon Wilson does not prosecute against this. I did a Freedom of Information Act, I think there were 6 names on there within the last 5 years. So if you're saying, like the parents have a choice, like Chad said, we don't have a choice in where our kids go to school. When our kids are kidnapped, we don't have a choice in their vaccinations because only one parent does now. And this isn't being prosecuted, so my question is, how are we going to get this done when the legislators don't listen to us because there's so much funding? The incentives are there to take children, flip the custody, the Title 4D funding, and there's funding for CPS removals as well. So how can we get a special session? I don't know if that's possible, but any parent that has never committed a crime against a child should still be in the life of their child. So I want to know if that's a possibility.
One of the things that we've got to do is we've got to make sure that our court systems are truly representing the interests and the rights of the parent. This is not we don't have a cookie cutter family system because every family is different, every parent is different, every child is different. One of the reasons I'm against training for the STAR test, every child is different, they test differently, they think differently, people parent differently. A lot of times we have judges that are sitting in these family law courts, and they're not considering the fact that there are unique situations that need to be addressed. We have to take that into consideration. There's no broad legislation that is going to be a blanket statement that takes care of every family situation. We need judges that care, we need judges that hear, judges that listen, and judges that embrace the rule of law, the letter of the law, and the spirit of the law in these situations, because let's face it, families are hurting. I encourage that, one of the things that we've got to do is we've got to get back to the focus on the family unit as the final authority. Work to make sure that families are able to stay together, but we all know that we live in a fallen world. We all realize that these things happen, but at the end of the day, you want someone fair, someone that listens, and we got to make sure from Austin, these people that are sitting in these judicial seats are the right people.
I would say that when I've been in politics, which isn't that long, but I've heard more complaints about family law courts than all the other courts combined. I mean, it's just a mess. It really is. And I just want to direct your attention that I would never, as your governor, want one penny from the federal government related to child custody or anything related. It will never, ever be about money. This state has tremendous revenue. We got plenty of money. We don't need to be using really blackmail money for child cases and things like that. That would never happen.
Question in the middle.
Well, my name's Charles Easton. When we took our pledge tonight, we said indivisible. In other words, our pledge to the flag was our country's indivisible. But yet earlier in the session, we had the Texas National Movement, and we had a bill that came before the House to study Texas separating from the United States, because there's a lot going on in Washington that we don't agree with. Where's the breaking point?
Senator Klein, I believe the floor is yours.
Well, I am for that legislation. I think it was Representative Biederman that sponsored that, and I'm for that legislation in Texas, and I would sign that and promote it. Texans deserve a right to vote where they are and what we're thinking about on succession. I'll tell you that I will, like I already said, I'm going to have our sovereignty to a level you've never seen. I'm not going to be asking permission from the federal government to do anything and close our borders or anything else we want to do. I'm not going to do it. And it's going to be a new day for Texas, a new chapter for Texas. I'm going to make sure Texas gets their swagger back. We can get our swagger back and prove to the world what it means to be a Texan.
So President Joe Biden drank his Ensure and went to bed 3 hours ago. He doesn't care about what's going on in Texas right now. We do. You're here tonight. When I'm governor of Texas and we see that we're in a situation where we no longer share the values with the federal government, and we have passed this bill and we have put it to the people to vote on it, on whether or not it proceeds or it dies. If it should go forward, and Texas, which is arguably at any given time between the 8th to the 12th largest economy in the world, when we secede, you can call me El Presidente. We're going to take Oklahoma with us. We'll take New Mexico because they're not using it. We'll ask Louisiana's permission because they're tough, okay? But I say that tongue-in-cheek, but also a very serious matter here, because we do deserve the right to determine our own future. The legacy that I spoke about earlier is going to be determined by the legislation that is passed. It is up to you, the people of Texas, to determine that legislation. We've already seen our priorities ignored in Austin, and there is no thought or care by the federal government of what's going on in Texas. We are being used, and to that degree, we will fight at whatever means and whatever cost it takes.
Question on the right.
My question is a two-part question. The first one is the vaccine passport. What is y'all's plans for the vaccine passport? And the other question is, what is y'all's plans to start holding some of these districts accountable that's not following the 504 plans for the kids that might need that little extra push to be able to get through some of these testing y'all talked about?
The two-part question, so you can double time the answer. Go ahead.
We do have to your point, we have to make sure that educators are in a situation where they treat, like I was saying with family law judges, we have to make sure that our kids are treated as individuals, and we have to focus on that, and we have to take the care to actually do the work of educating. When it comes to vaccine passports, if somehow you get one of those things printed out on the internet, if you'll meet me in the yard, we'll start a bonfire, and we'll light those things up. There is no one out there who should be asking you to give them, or should be asking you for a qualification of where you go, what you do, how you live your life, how you do your business, or anything else. That is not Texas, that's not America, and this is a fight that's going to be coming. It absolutely should not happen. You have the right to do anything you want to do as long as it doesn't usurp or infringe on the rights of somebody else. That's what liberty is all about. And to do otherwise, such as a vaccine passport or anything else that qualifies you to be free, is not constitutional.
Well, I agree with that. And can I put my mask in a bonfire?
By all means. By all means.
I never wore them anyway. But look, I'm not for vaccine passports. I'm not going to take the vaccine. I'm for vaccine choice. If you want to do it, go get after it. But I'm not doing it.
Question right.
Evening, man. I just like want to know what you're going to do with the damn Democrats when they come back to Texas.
Don't let them in!
Well, I was just on the War Room talking about that yesterday. I can tell you what the Texas Constitution allows us to do a lot to those Democrats right now, even if they're not in Texas. We really have the authority to do a whole lot. We could impound their vehicles. We could throw all their office furniture out in the yard. We could lock them out of their offices. We can empty out their campaign accounts. The governor has the authority to do tremendous damage to these people. Make them, all kinds of things. It's in the Constitution. But what's he doing? He's the one that allowed it, like I said. And it's going to come back and bite him really hard. And what I would do, I'd go up there and get him. I'd send the law enforcement up there to get them and bring them back in handcuffs and lock the doors and make them do their job.
So they want to be arrested, right? Because that's the optics they've been going for. And you look at something like that and you wonder how it came about. It's because Greg Abbott gave them 6 weeks before calling a special session. That's why you don't put kids in timeout. It gives them 5 minutes to think about the next round of crap they're going to do to you. To give Democrats 6 weeks to plan the optics and the PR and the marketing of what they did is ridiculous. If I were governor, I would be on every news outlet right now with a Black & Decker screwdriver changing the locks on their office doors in the Capitol building. I would fire their staff. I would declare their seats vacant. I would throw, as you said, their chairs not only in their office, but the one they normally sit on the House floor, I'd throw it out in the yard and set it on fire. We would send a clear message. Docking their pay does nothing. We would fire their staff. We would make sure that not only are they taken off of any assignment or any committee that they're on, but they would be held accountable so that they could never hold office in the state of Texas ever again. Now, there are those who say, you can't do that. Arrest me, because I'll do it. I will do it. And then we would declare an emergency quorum and we would get on with the business of the state.
Amen.
Thank you. Yes.
Question in the center.
Drug cartels on the border make a lot of money. Is there any way you can raise our assets to put a dent in some of the drugs they're bringing over?
Mr. Prather, this is yours.
So to put a number to that, in Valverde County alone, there at Del Rio, the cartels are making $25 million a week trafficking drugs and human beings. But yet we're allowing them to come in and operate on our interstate system, which can be shut down easily. We have a lot of power financially, economically, governmentally. We have a lot of power to leverage this state against the Biden administration, the federal government. We have a lot. One of the things we need to do is we need to continue to pressure the federal government, Washington, D.C., to declare the cartels an international terrorist organization. Then it plays out completely different in the way we address the cartel situation. When things are apprehended, we don't do like Obama did to Iran and send $4 billion on a pallet of cash in a midnight airplane over there so they could just use it to attack us again in various ways. We take their money, we use it. We could build that wall in a heartbeat. $25 million a week, that's a heck of a business. We turn our guys loose to go in there and take care of business. We shut these interstates down. We take care of these gangs. It's a new ball game. It's a new ball game. I won't even get into issuing, never mind, I'm not even gonna talk about that. Later I'll tell you that one. Over a drink.
I want to rewind just a second to that last question about Abbott and the Democrats leaving, and then I'm going to get right to that real quick. Abbott, you know what he did after they walked away in the regular session? He signed over 300 pieces of their legislation. Mm-hmm. He signed their budget. Every one of them voted for the budget. I mean, how stupid could you be?
That's right.
I mean, what poor leadership do we have? It's amazing. But to answer your question, these cartels are the most violent criminal organizations on earth. They are evil. They are the definition of being possessed. They are evil. And they're making, like Mr. Prather said, hundreds of millions a month across the border. No one crosses the border without paying them. They got those wristbands they cut off, see who they paid. Everyone's being trafficked, human trafficking, sex trafficking. It's flooding into Dallas. I was just with some people this last week. They told me even to the Galleria Mall, all these girls are being trafficked in the mall by the ice rink. They're all young, 14, 15 years old. It's all by the cartels. And their money, don't think people aren't for sale. We've got law enforcement that's been bribed. We've got Border Patrol that's been bribed. We've got judges, district attorneys. That poison is coming over here. The Mexican government has lost control of the frontera. There's no question about it. And that poison is on its way. Real quick. Article 1, Section 10 of the United States Constitution gives me, as the governor, the authority to kill every one of them any way I want.
Question in the front?
Okay, gentlemen, I know the governor cannot take care of this problem, but when I moved here 25 years from the Golden Bear state of California, I left California, I moved here and I thought, why in the hell are you guys having open primaries? Why are you having open primaries versus closed primaries? That creates a lot of problems. And I know that is a legislative issue, and the governor can't do anything about it. But the governor can lead the charge and close the damn primaries.
Mm-hmm.
Senator Huffines, this is you.
Well, I'm for a closed primary also. And, the governor can lead the charge. It's all about leadership, as we've already said, as you just said. It's about leadership. Everything starts at the top. And the governor doesn't champion something, it's not going to get done. It's very rare. Everybody just floats around out there. So we can get that done.
Okay.
We can get it done. Again, we have amazing power of leverage with the things that we can do in terms of leading by example and leveraging the authority of the state of Texas. There are things that can be done. And when you lead by example, when you lead by conviction, there are certain things that are out there that if you do them long enough and you demonstrate the successfulness of doing it that way, people start to wake up and they realize that maybe we've been doing it wrong. And I think with some common sense, we can turn the tides in that area.
All right, question in the back, and I think we've got a few more questions, but I want to make sure everybody has a chance to ask it, but evening's waiting on, everybody is ready for this answer. So 15 seconds, is that fair, Grant?
Yeah.
All right, so we'll just run through these real quick.
How do you feel about Texas?
Texas, I go back to the original question that was asked earlier. I think that the state of Texas has the right, they should have the right to vote on that. It comes down to the will of the people. It's not a dictatorial decision. It's not a unilateral decision. It's not something that legislators are going to determine. It comes down to the will of the people.
Well, I agree completely. The Texans should have a right to do that. I think you'll see with the Huffines administration, though, that you're going to see me exercise our sovereignty to a level that's never been done before. So it might not be necessary, or it might be really necessary.
Hi, my name is Cody McCain, and I wanted to thank both of you gentlemen. This is my first political event, so I appreciate all your candidness tonight. The question I have, we have a lot of people coming into our state from other places that don't share our values. A lot of candidates talk about what they're going to do in terms of bills they're going to pass, changes they're going to make in the legislature, and issues they're going to drive. Sometimes I want to know what you're going to kill in terms of the amount. You talk about less government. What are you going to kill? How are you going to retard the legislative process so as we are infiltrated by these values coming into our system? Texas doesn't change overnight.
Senator Huffines, this is yours.
Well, it all starts again with courageous leadership. It starts at the top. The governor's got to make sure that everyone understands where Texas is and isn't. I'm not going to give any incentives or cash or any money to companies to relocate here. That's a slush fund the governor currently has. And our values are our values, and I'll use the bully pulpit to communicate that. And when companies relocate here and they move staff here, those people don't share our values. But we've got a lot of people coming from California, and they're refugees from the communists. So they're coming here for the right reasons. But I will make sure our culture doesn't change.
Yeah. And I got to stop you from calling him Governor Huffines. That is a Freudian slip right there. What is wrong? Who did you pay, Don? What is it?
Governor Prather.
There you go. I like this. Equal opportunity here. The doors have been thrown wide open. Austin is becoming a small Silicon Valley. And we're seeing that it's going to continue to push our property taxes higher. We got to close the door to that. Texas was great long before HP and Facebook and Amazon and Tesla and all these different multinational corporations came in here. We were providing for listen, there's 8.9 million jobs out there. Go out there and get one. We don't have to continue to welcome Central California into Texas. We don't have to do that stuff. If I had my way, I could constitutionally figure out a way to do it. If you moved here from, say, California, Washington, or New York, you should live on a 4-year probationary period before you could even vote on Texas politics. Hey. Texas is caught, not taught. We need to give you some time.
I've been here 25 years.
There, you get it. Me too, you get
Question on the
it.
left.
Thanks. While we're out here sitting around talking about CRT, how our kids are being taught, indoctrination, and everything else the media wants you to think about, all this time, every single month, for months now, ever since coronavirus, the government has been stealing 4% every single month of your money by inflating the currency. By taking everything that you have and giving it to the multinationals, giving it to Bezos, giving it to Zuckerberg, giving it to everybody. What, as governor, are you going to do to actually get us our money back?
One of the things that I think it's my turn. It is. It is, yeah. Hey, one of the things that I think we need to do, and numerous states have enacted this, and I think there's some merit to it. We're talking about cryptocurrency and all these various currencies. You remember gold and silver? You remember bullion? Some of you may collect it, and some of you are sitting around talking to your kids about it, and they don't know what in the world that means or what it does or what you can even do with that silver coin. I think that we need to have gold and silver-backed transactional currency right here in the state of Texas that is used by the state of Texas. These things that can't be subject to capital gains. Because again, we're penalizing people with ridiculous things. The dollar has been diminished to the point, we've printed more in the last 4 months, printed more currency than we have in the history of the United States combined. The dollar is in trouble, folks. We've got to do something about our currency. And I say currency, and it starts right here in the state of Texas.
Yeah.
Thank you, Mr. Brady. What's the headline?
Well, I think we should definitely prepare ourselves for the inevitable collapse of the U.S. dollar. We should, and that's one thing a governor can do. And we should be prepared as we are going to be prepared for a hurricane. We need to be prepared for that inevitable collapse, and what we're going to do about that. And that's why I agree with Chad. We need to make sure we have gold or silver or some other mechanism to have transactions in this state when our dollar's worthless.
That's right. And it's coming.
Thank you, Mr. Huffines.
Question on the right, left.
Right is good.
No left in this room. No, right.
How do we address the homeless situation, that particularly in some of the big cities? Where do we start? It's certainly not going to be a quick fix.
That's right.
Mr. Huffines, this is yours.
Well, it's really a mental health issue more than anything. And we need to take care of the mental health issues with some of our citizens. But we're not going to let them camp in public areas. We're not going to let them beg in public areas. We need to make sure that they've got a separate area to go to where they can be housed, and try to convince them to stay in the housing. And you know, it's a tough job. It really is. But we don't need them camping out under bridges, pitching tents, and everything like that.
There's no complex problem that has a simple solution. And there's also no complex problem that can be solved with political correctness. So we have to call things what they are. To Senator Huffines' point, we do have to provide space. We have to provide care and help, and in some ways invasive help, because folks with mental illness don't know they need the help. And mental illness across the country is something that's being neglected right now. This has become not only a mental health issue, a drug issue, a criminal issue, but it's an affordable housing issue in some cases. And we have something unique here in Texas. They wanted to keep Austin weird. It's gotten so weird that many of the transients down there, and I've seen them myself, are choosing homelessness as a lifestyle. These things have to stop.
10 seconds.
These are the things that have to go away. It's not an easy solution. There's a lot that needs to be addressed.
Question in the back. I think this will probably be the last one. Great guys, you have done a great job. As governor, what can you do about the Biden administration running illegals out of Laughlin Air Force Base?
Mr. Brady, this is yours.
Well, it's as I said earlier, we control the roads in this state. I've been to Laughlin Air Force Base. You have to drive to it. We can shut that down. We can stop that before they ever get there. Just as we need to stop these buses that are heading up our interstate system. Just as we can stop these railroads when we know that they are conduits for illegals that are heading into Kinney County, going to the rail yard and immediately headed to San Francisco. These are things we can stop by shining a light on the problem before it ever gets to a situation where the federal government has any say in the matter. These are the things we have to enforce by enforcing the laws that are already on the books. Let's take our authority back and do something about it.
Thank you, Mr. Huffines.
Well, as governor, I can tell you, I would stop every one of them. And I might even decide I don't let them leave and see how they like living with all those people on that base for the next year.
That's right.
So if they wouldn't get there, and I'm not sure they're going to leave if I'm governor.
That's right. Takes care of a problem, doesn't it?
Yeah,
Takes us a solution.
Gentlemen, I would like to congratulate both of you on what has been an interesting, one more question, Georgia?
Term limits, zero-based budget. Yes.
Okay, term limits.
Zero-based budget.
Zero-based budgeting. What do you think?
I'll go quick on term limits. I've filed 3 to 4 bills every session. I was a champion on term limits. I set it up any way you could set it up. I'm from term limits. I am for term limits from the governor to the dog catcher, including all across the board. There needs to be an end game to this thing. From HOA board members, school board members, city councils, the governor, the legislators, all of them.
That's right.
So I'm all for it, and I will make sure that happens.
To your point about budget, listen, $40 billion, that's the budgetary increase that has happened underneath Greg Abbott's watch. $40 billion in spend. That's an increase that's got to stop. We've got to clean house. We've got to reduce the size of our government. We've certainly got to reduce the spending and actually be conservatives again. And to term limits, there's two things. I agree with Senator Huffines. We got to make sure that those bills are passed. Absolutely. Going into politics should be like serving on jury duty. You're like, it's my turn to do it. And now it's my turn to go home. And if we have election integrity, it puts the power back in the hands of the people to make sure if you're not doing a good job, we can guarantee you're not coming back for another term.
Thank you, gentlemen. In a year and a half's time, we may be saying Governor Prather or Governor Huffines, but more than anything, thank you for an interesting and informative debate. I would like to give each of you one last opportunity to say something to the audience. I'd like a 2-minute closing statement from each of you. Mr. Prather, your turn to be first. And as you're doing so, I'd like you to tell the audience just a little twist. What is one thing that is really giving you a lot of hope for the future of Texas?
Everywhere I go, I'm able to talk to a lot of great Texans, a lot of great patriots, folks that have a lot of questions and a lot of concerns. The fact that we can come out here on a Thursday night in the middle of July and fill up a room here in Fort Worth, Texas, in the middle of Tarrant County in the Elk Lodge, and have these conversations is so encouraging to me. I talked with my team the other day and I said, here's the deal, guys. I said, I've made a living in small business. I've made a living in entertainment and in television. From this day forward, my career changes. Regardless of who wins the primary in 2022, my philosophy is ABA, anyone but Abbott. Yes. If Senator Huffines was in a runoff against Greg Abbott, I would marshal my forces, everybody that I have influence in. I guarantee you we would put everything we've got behind Senator Huffines. You have a unique opportunity right now to see what integrity looks like, what humility looks like, what a shared and common vision and goal looks like. I believe that's true, and I won't speak in his absence of Colonel West, but I believe that's true of him as well. And we're in a situation, folks, where Texans care about their future. And I believe that we have an untenable future if we continue down this course. In less than a decade, we will have a Texas that is virtually unrecognizable. It will be completely antithetical and opposite from the history that we've enjoyed, and our legacy will be dead. It's my prayer that Texas will remain great, that people will continue to see the spirit of Texas, embrace it, and like an infectious disease, contagious Texas will catch on like a wildfire and go across the nation of America. That's my prayer. Reality says that we're in trouble. Reality says, as many of you have brought up these topics, that these issues must be addressed, or else. Greg Abbott has never addressed these issues. The numbers have proven it. The numbers have shown it. I'm a guy who a year ago was fed up. I didn't have anything to put on the line other than to say I have a voice and a platform, and I've had enough. I love this state enough. People say, is this a gimmick? And they're still waiting on the punchline. I don't joke when it comes to Texas. I want you to understand, my heart is for you, the people of Texas. My heart is for this great state, our Texas, to be an example for the rest of the nation and ultimately to the world. People say, is this for a popularity contest? Trust me, I don't need this kind of popularity. It's my prayer, again, that you will understand what we're trying to do here. Embrace it. There may be televisions, telephones, but there's teleperson. Pass this word on. This primary matters. We're running a Grassroots campaign, Prather2022.com. Grassroots is political speak, which means we're broke. I've been trying to get a donation out of Senator Huffines for a month. Somebody said to me at CPAC, they said, he's self-funded. I said, me too. I love Don Huffines. I appreciate him. I appreciate his team. I appreciate the campaign. I appreciate their efforts. I appreciate his spirit and his heart. He doesn't have to do this. I don't have to do this. We don't necessarily want to do this.
But you love Texas.
But I love Texas.
Amen.
And I love you. You can also go to Beto22.com, which will bring you back to my website. I love y'all. God bless you. Thank you tonight. Thank you.
That's a tough one to follow. It really is. That's a tough close. But I too would support Chad.
Thank you.
If he's in the runoff, I'm not. I can tell you I'll marshal my resources to make sure he wins. Then it's so important that we have new leadership in our governor's seat. It's so important. The catalyst that made me want to run was last spring of 20 when he closed our state down. Mm-hmm. And one day he put 3 million Texans on unemployment. He made 3 million Texans dependent on the government. Tens of thousands of businesses were gone. Boom! They just disappeared. Did he care how many sacrifices you made for that business or that job? He didn't care because he listened to the know-it-alls. He's the smartest guy in the room. That's how they think down there. That's how he thinks. He's a career politician that knows everything. And then he closed our churches. He closed our churches on the holiest week of the year, Easter. We've never done that. You couldn't properly bury the dead. You couldn't get married. You couldn't get baptized. And do you know why Christianity, we've never done that? Because you're talking about people's salvation.
Yeah.
Mental illness, rampant. You couldn't visit the sick or the dead. We've been lied to over and over. The lied to about the origins of the virus. Lied to about how you cure the virus. Yeah, it was real. We get it. But it wasn't what they said. They lied to us about how they're going to pass our party platform issues. They don't care about that. They're going to come back to you. He's going to come back and tell you how great he was, what a great conservative session we've had. And they're liars. He doesn't believe in what we believe. And I call him a rhino. He said, well, is that tough? Republican in name only? Not really. How much of our party platform can you say you don't believe in and still be a Republican? Is it 50%? Less than 50%? I bet you could find Democrats that agree with 30% of it.
Yeah.
Well, he never passes more than 20% of it every session, if that. And he only does that because we put the pressure on him. Let me tell you, patriots, I am so excited when I see you. Like Chad said, you're coming out here at night, giving up your time, something you're never going to get back. You understand that the fundamental role of government is always to defend your God-given liberty. You know we don't swear an allegiance to a king or queen or to the military or to a president. We swear allegiance to a little document that was written specifically to restrain government, to protect your God-given liberties. Patriots, our greatest days are coming. Grab your swords of liberty. Unsheath them from their sticky scabbards and help me cut the chains of government. Awaken the sleeping sheep so we can restore our liberties that have been stolen from us. We can restore them together. Our time is coming. This is Texas. We will bend a knee to no man, to no government for no reason. Our greatest days are yet to dawn. Our time is now. God bless you. God bless Texas. I love you guys. For liberty, prosperity, and virtue. Thank you.
Solid round of applause for our two guests this evening.